Happy Sunday Fun Day, y'all. This is Lieutenant, and we are now live. And today we have a very, very special guest. This is a gentleman who is intuitive, an experiencer, an investigator, a researcher, a cryptozoologist. This gentleman has appeared in a half dozen independent films, along with network TV regarding all aspects of the paranormal. He is also the founder of the Bronxville Paranormal Society. He is the director of the New York State UFO Project, New York State Sasquatch Organization, and the director of the North American Dogman Project New York State Chapter. He was also an ex-podcaster and co-host of the critically acclaimed Beyond the Realm digital radio network show. With 53 years of experience in all aspects of the paranormal field, ladies and gentlemen, I give y'all Mr. Al Santariga. How's it going, Al?
Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much. It's going good. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. I'm doing great, man. This is going to be an excellent, excellent Sunday. So, of course, you know, we promoted this show, you and I both. And I know you have a little treat for us. Of course, everybody, our first hour topic is going to be of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And Mr. Santagria has a little treat for us. And Al, if you want to jump into that, the mic is all yours, bud.
Okay. All right. So in 1974, I was 12 years old, and I was sent down South Florida with my cousin Anthony to visit my sister who lived in a little town called Davie. Davie was on the outskirts of the northern part of the Everglades. It had dirt streets. The biggest thing in the town was on 4th of July was the rodeo. It was a real cowboy kind of town, and we would go down there every year. Me and my cousin Anthony and my brother-in-law was an ex-Marine, and he had a restaurant, and he would put us to work in the morning, working around the house. We did everything, paint, cut grass. We built all kinds of crap. And then in the afternoon, we would take our dirt bikes and go riding out in the swamp. And we had guns, too. We actually went in the swamp and we did target practice and stuff, you know. And it was a good time, man. It was really a good time. So one night, it started one night we're hanging out, me and my cousin Anthony. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that, and we're watching this old rock show used to come on called Don Kirshner's Rock Concert, and we're sitting there, we're listening to the show, watching the show, and my sister had sensor lights around her house. Property was fenced in 3/4 of the way. The front of the house was open with a circular driveway with a fountain in the middle. She had 2 big German shepherds. And me and my cousin Anthony are watching the show, and all of a sudden the dogs go absolutely insane. They go crazy. And my cousin's like, bring the dogs in the garage to wake up the whole house. My brother-in-law would have kicked our ass if the whole house would have woke up. And we had small children in the house. So I dragged the dogs into the garage. We didn't know why the dogs were going crazy, but we got this horrible, horrible smell that went past the house. It was disgusting. I would describe it like smelling like 1,000 skunks. It was really,
Wow.
really bad. And didn't know anything about the skunk ape, knew about Bigfoot, seen the Patty film, always believed it was real. But, you know, like everybody else, always thought Bigfoot was out in the Pacific Northwest. And the next morning, we're sitting around the breakfast table, and we're talking to my brother-in-law and my sister, and we're saying, hey, last night, man, something went by the house. It stunk to high heaven, you know, and the dogs were crazy. I had to put them in the garage and yada, yada, yada. And my sister looks at my brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law looks at us, and he says, oh, that's the skunk ape. Now, me and my cousin Anthony, you know, we look at each other like, skunk ape? the hell is a skunk ape, you know? And and they go on to explain that it's like the Florida version of Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought they were pulling our chain, you know, like, nah, I'm not so sure if I'm buying this, you know what I mean? And so we really wasn't sure. We did our chores that morning, and then we jumped on our bikes. So we would always meet everybody out in the woods in the afternoon, and we hang out there all night. We'd have bonfires and stuff, and it was a fun time. And so we started talking to the local kids, and said, hey, is there any? You guys ever hear of this thing called the skunk ape? And they looked at us and they're like, yeah, why? And like, well, something came past the house last night and it stunk to high heaven. The dogs went crazy. And they're like, oh, yeah, every year around this time. And it was right around the 4th of July. So every year around this time when it gets hot, skunk ape comes by. It's not a big deal. Happens every year. And me and my cousin Anthony, like looking at each other like, are these people for real? Are these people, are they pulling our legs, But they were like, yeah, it's no big deal, Okay, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. So a few nights go by, and my cousin Anthony and I are sleeping on a pull-out couch in the sitting room that faced a giant picture window that faced the driveway, the circular driveway. And the dogs were in the garage that night, and we were sitting there, and all of a sudden, we had just gone to bed. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and the sensor lights go out on the driveway, and we see this giant shadow go from right to left on our wall. And we don't know what the hell we're looking at. So I jump off the bed, and I do like a little tuck and roll, like crawl to the window, peek open the curtain to see what's out there. Because, the grass comes right up to the window, you know what I mean? Our heads are right there on the other side of the window. And I peek out, and I see this thing that looks like King Kong. Okay? Whoa. It's 9 feet tall. It's got to weigh 900 pounds. And it's looking at the picture window, and it does like this incredible Hulk flex, and it screams this blood-curdling scream. I mean, my cousin Anthony was 15 and I was 12, and he was frozen in the bed. He couldn't move a muscle, and I'm freaking out because I think this thing is looking at me and screaming. Wow. But hindsight being 20/20, it probably seen its own reflection in the glass. Yeah. And it was just like challenging itself, Anyway, it turns and it starts walking towards the south side of the house, and that part of the house was there was a vacant field there. They hadn't built it. It was a big development. It was called Sunshine Acres. It was like a giant square, and it was 4 miles long. And to get to it, you had to go over a couple of canals. And he jumps out of the bed, and we go into the bathroom in between the kids' room and my sister's room. And we're sitting in the bathroom, and we have the lights off. The screens are tinted black. The glass has tinted to black. You can't see into the window. We don't have the lights in the bathroom. We're looking out, and this creature is walking past us. She had a 6-foot fence around the back of the house. Wow. And this thing was head and shoulders above the fence. That's where I get the 9 feet from. It had to be at least 3 feet taller than the fence.
Wow.
And it's walking past us, and it's looking at us like it could see us looking at the bathroom window. Well, we're thinking there's no way this thing can see us because the lights are all pitch black. We have the lights off. Excuse me. And at one point, it stops because in this field, this patch of land, there were wild watermelons. And it bent down and it grabbed the watermelon, and with one bite, it bit through this whole watermelon, and there was just nothing left but 2 nubs on each end.
Wow.
And it eats this watermelon, drops the nubs on the floor, and it starts walking towards the back of the house. Our neighbor on the back side of our house had a man-made lake, and we used to swim in that lake because it was actually cooler than the pool my sister had. So my cousin and Anthony and I, we run out to the back of the property. She had a screened-in patio, and we kept the lights lights off. We're in a screened-in patio, and of course the sensor lights on the back of the house go off. And this thing walks towards the lake, gets to the lake, squats down, the whole time looking at us. It never took its eye off of us. And with one hand, it started scooping up water, cupping water, and drinking the water out of the lake. Then it gets up, and it walks off into the woods, right where we hang out every single night. It goes into the swamp. So the next morning, we tell my sister and my brother-in-law what happened. Oh my God, we see the skunk ape last night. It was a monster, it's unbelievable. It was 9 feet tall. It had this reddish black hair. And my brother was like, show me where it went. And we went, and we seen the footprints, and the footprints were like 18 inches long and like 9 inches wide in the sand. And my brother says, okay, I'm going to come home for lunch, and I'm going to cast these footprints. I want to put them up on the bar, And we're like, okay, very cool. And he never came home for lunch, and down the street from us was a horse rancher that did tours in the swamp, and they used to ride right by our house, and they rode over those tracks, and they destroyed the tracks. By the time my brother-in-law got home later in the evening for dinner, the tracks were already destroyed, so we never were able to get any of those tracks. But anyway, time goes on. A couple of weeks go by. 4th of July rolls in and out. Now that summer, there are skunk ape sightings everywhere. When I tell you, man, every time you turned the news on, there was a peeping Tom looking in the window in the town over from us, which was what's the name of that town? New City, I think it was. And Cooper City. It was called Cooper City. And people would call the cops. The cops would get out there thinking there was somebody peeping in the window, and they would see the skunk ape, dive into the canal and swim away. Another state trooper was hiding in the spot up against the wood line, and the skunk ape leaned on the back of his car as it came out of the woods, walked right past it. I mean, there was just stories in the news all the time.
Wow.
So, and this particular summer, there was a drought down Florida that year, and there were fires in the Everglades, and a lot of the animals were being pushed inland towards us. Mm-hmm. So, so I think that was another reason why we had so many sightings that year. It's because of the fires in the Everglades. A few nights go by, we're all hanging out, and my brother-in-law comes home from the restaurant like at 12 o'clock at night and brings us a couple of pies, and we're sitting out in the patio, and we're eating some pizza, and everybody's just bullshitting, and all of a sudden we hear bang, 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 bang. So we run to the front of the house, and the horse rancher, who was to our northwest, and he had just brought in this wild Mustang or stallion or something from Wyoming, and he couldn't put it in the barn with the rest of the horses because it would kick. When they put it in the stall, it would make all the other horses crazy. So they left it in the corral at night. And every day they had a Seminole Native American come in and work the horse, try to break the horse. Well, that night, this horse was in the corral. And this creature, and I don't know how this is possible, but this creature crept up behind that horse and grabbed it by its hind quarters, okay? And when it did, the horse kicked out. The horse must have kicked that creature right in the chest. And the creature let go, and the horse jumped the corral and ran out to the pasture. And once it got out to the pasture, the creature couldn't catch it. But by that time, my friend, we'll call him Jimmy, his father, is out there with the dirty, shooting at this thing, and this thing is running into the swamp. So we jump on our dirt bikes. My brother says, "Go, see what's going on." So we jump on our dirt bikes. We go over there, and the whole neighborhood is out, And his father's telling everybody, "Yeah, that goddamn creature came back and tried to kill my brand new horse." And the next morning, we go over, The Native American is over there, the Seminole Indian, and they ride out to the pasture and they bring the horse back to the corral. The sheriff is there. And when they bring the horse back to the corral, the horse has got fingerprints in its hind quarters. Not claw marks, fingerprints. Like if I was to grab you by your wrist and squeeze real tight,
right,
and it leaves that finger. That's what this horse had on its hind
wow.
quarters. And, the sheriff was like, okay, we're going to have to pick up the patrol in this area at night because you guys are having a lot of activity here, And, and then, people are like, yeah, well, if we see that thing, we're going to kill it, because back in, 74, everybody had guns in their pickup trucks.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just how it was. That's South Florida, if you were 16 years old and you had a pickup truck, you had a couple of rifles on the back window,
That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's just how it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And so everybody's like, we're going to shoot this thing, we're going to kill this thing. And so the sheriff and the deputies started patrolling the area a couple of times that night. And like I said, this area was a giant square, and I used to jog it every day. I would jog this 4 miles every day. And there was a house just up the street from us that was, he was a cattle rancher, and he had a Brahma bull. I mean, this giant bull white bull with a big lump on its neck and big horns. And when we used to ride our dirt bikes around the neighborhood, we'd have to make a hard right to come out of our street. And sometimes, because of the gravel, the bikes would slide and we'd ride across this guy's lawn and tear it up. And so my brother-in-law was always, paying this guy to fix his lawn because we were tearing it up because we were taking the turns too quick,
Right.
And one day, I'm jogging down the street, and this lady's coming home, and she's got this giant St. Bernard behind the fence. She hits the remote control on her car to open up the gate so she can go in to unload her groceries. And this dog comes charging out after me like Cujo, okay?
Wow.
I'm hauling ass down the street. Now, the fence at the cattle rancher's farm was only about a 4-foot fence, 3-foot split. So at one point, the dog is gaining on me, and I do a head dive over the top of that fence. I know that dog's not coming over that fence. He's too heavy,
Mm-hmm.
Go over that fence. I end up in the pasture, and there's this Brahma bull looking at me, right? So I'm working my way because I know they're nearsighted, right? So if he charges, I'm going to wait till the last second to get out of the way. But I'm working my way along the fence line in between the cows to get out of the main gate, In the meantime, the lady calls the dog back. So I know how big this Brahma bull was. This bull was like, a Volkswagen Bug. You know what I mean? That's how big this bull was.
Wow.
Oh, no, it was I'm telling you, if this bull weighed 2,500 pounds, it weighed an ounce, okay?
Wow, that's a big bull.
So we're hanging out one night. My brother-in-law has friends from New York fly down. They take him out to dinner and dancing down in Miami. Me and my cousin Anthony watch the kids, and they get back home around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And, of course, as soon as they pull into the driveway, the dogs go nuts. So we know they're home. And my brother got a brand new Lincoln Continental Mark IV or whatever it was back then. And he says, any action tonight? And we're like, no, quiet night, nothing's happening. No sooner did we say that, we hear this blood-curdling scream. I mean, nobody knew what this scream was. It scared the living crap out of my sister. She ran in the house. She could get in the house fast enough with the dogs, And my brother says, jump in the car, let's go see what's going on. So as we're getting into the car, my cousin Anthony, calls shotgun. I jump in the back. I'm hanging out the sunroof. We hear boom, boom. We see 2 blasts from a shotgun go off, right? Mm-hmm. So now my brother-in-law's racing up the street to see what's going on. Just as we get to the corner, the deputies is coming by. He's at our end, like this. Let's call it the north end of the neighborhood, and all the way, 3 miles away, a mile away, whatever it was, on the south end is the sheriff. He's turning the far corner, but they're both crawling because they got their lights on, spotlights, and they're looking.
Mm-hmm.
And the deputy is looking to his left with his spotlight, and because that's where the swamp was, on his left, and so he's looking to his left, and we're looking to the left, and this creature comes running out of the darkness from between a couple of houses on the right, and the deputy hits it, okay? And this police car, look, stopped dead like you hit a telephone pole, okay?
Wow.
It stops dead. The creature goes down, hits a street sign, like a stop sign or whatever, mm-hmm. or a school bus sign or something like that, and turns it into a pancake, just flattens it, right? Now we're sitting there. It gets back up, and it's limping across the street, and it gets in front of the deputy's car, and it looks at the deputy, and I'm hanging out at the sunroof watching this. We're 10, 15 feet the furthest away from this creature, mm-hmm. and it lets out a scream. And it punches the front of this police car with both hands, like a hammer punch.
Damn.
And the back of the car comes off the ground.
Whoa.
And everybody is in just shock. Now, back then, if you know, back then the sheriffs and the state police used to drive with the shotgun inside the car, in between the driver and the passenger. That's where it was mounted. You know,
mm-hmm.
and so we're looking at this thing, and it limps off into the wood, into the swamp. At this point, the sheriff is coming down the road, and he sees the police car just smashed up in the middle of the road. So he starts asking the deputy what happened, and the deputy tells him what happened, and he goes, "Well, why did you shoot it with the shotgun? You know, you had it right there." And he's like, "Nah. Shotgun wasn't big enough, you know. All I got is like double-aught bucket there. It's not going to do the trick." And so now the sheriff is interviewing us, see what we see, because I guess they got to do an accident report on the car, right? The insurance.
Yeah.
And we're talking to the sheriff, and we're explaining the same exact thing the deputy's seen, we've seen. When the cattle rancher comes racing up the street, and this pickup truck is doing 100 miles an hour, comes skidding to a halt, and he says, "God damn it, Sheriff, you got to do something about that goddamn creature. You got to see what it did to my prize bull." Now, I'm thinking, what the hell could this thing have done to this bull? This bull was a monster in itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the sheriff goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Follow me." So the sheriff goes back to the cattle rancher's house. We go around the depth, and we follow the sheriff back to the guy's ranch. And the sheriff is going along the pasture with a spotlight, and there's this Brahma bull bleeding out in the middle of the pasture with no head. And it just ripped the head off of this creature. This skunk ape ripped the head off of this Brahma bull.
Jeez.
So he's like, "Well, where the hell's the damn head?" So he's flashing the pasture with the spotlight, and the head is like 100 yards away at the other end of the pasture. He just threw the head when he was done killing the bull. And he said, "Yeah, I took a couple of shots at it with the shotgun, but I don't think I hit it, you know." And I mean, that was just insane. That night, the state police showed up, the county police, the town police. They had dogs, they had horses, they had helicopters, they had posses, and they searched those swamps high and low all night long. And I was like all psyched up, because I figured in the morning the people were going to be there, you know, and interview us, and we were going to give our interview, because we've seen the whole thing. And but the crazy thing about it, no one ever showed up. No,
really?
No police, no reporters ever showed up, and you know, they never found anything. So as we used to take out tours. We used to work at the horse ranches, stables, shovel and shit to make money to buy beer and stuff to go hang out in the woods. Right. And every now and then he would ask us to take out tours, because he was too busy, and he knew the horses knew where they were going anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we just had to ride up front and back to make sure no one fell off into the swamp. And so we used to take out tours. So we're all hanging out, and area where we hung out in the swamp, the kids called it the turnaround. They said the water would come in, turn around, and then go back out. And all the kids from the neighborhood would swim in this canal. And I would say, you guys are absolutely out of your minds, because there's water moccasins in there, and there's alligators in there. I'm not going in there. Like, no, the alligators don't come in this part of the turnaround, because they just don't come in here. And I'm like, what do you mean they don't come in here? I'm looking down. We used to fish there every day. There was fish in that water. There was frogs. There was turtle. There was plenty of food. You know, why wouldn't the alligators come in there? And we couldn't figure it out. And then one day, me and my cousin Anthony are fishing in the turnaround, and alligator sunning himself. And he's floating in. And I swear to God, when this alligator woke up and seen where it was, his eyes almost popped out of his head. And it ran on the top of the water to get out of that turnaround.
Dang.
And me and my cousins just looked at each other like, what the hell is that all about? So one of my best friends back then, this kid Ricky, he was a real rebel. You know, he was a wild kid. His whole brothers were all nuts and everything. I mean, they were always jumping dirt bikes and stuff, evil Knievel kind of stuff. And Ricky says to me one day, he says, "You know what, Al?" He says, "I think that creature lives in the canals." He says, "I think there's caverns in the canals that it swims into, and that's why no one's ever able to find this thing when it gets in there, because I think the caverns are underwater." And he says, "I'm going to look for her." And I was like, okay, but I'm not coming with you, you know? And he's swimming in and out of all the cattails all around the turnaround. And he finally pops up and he says, "Al, I found it. I found a cavern. It's underwater, because you got to come with me." And I was like, no, I'm not going with you, dude. You know, forget about it. He's like, no, you got to come with. I'm like, dude, listen. I said, first of all, it's probably an alligator den, number one. So number two, even if it was the cavern where these creatures live, think about what your father would do if he woke up and seen a stranger in his house. You know what I mean?
Right.
Your father would shoot him on sight. If you end up in this thing's lair and it finds you, it's going to rip you to shreds. We'll never see you again. And he goes, "No, I'm going in. And he goes, "Okay." I said, "Go ahead, go in." He says, "All right." He goes, "Give me like 5 minutes. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, drive to my house again. My brothers, show them where I'm at." Okay. I didn't have a watch at the time, so I'm counting 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes in, and I'm just about getting to like 5 minutes in, and I'm getting ready to start the dirt bike up to ride to his house. He comes popping out of the water, and he's like flying 100 miles an hour. This dude is bouncing off the wall. And he's like, "I found it. He found I found the creature's lair." He goes, "Al, it opens up to an underwater cavern." He says, "It smells horrible, burns your eyes. You can't open, you can't see, you can't breathe. But I'm telling you, there are holes in the walls where I think all these creatures have family units are living in these." And he goes, you got to come in. I got to show you. I want you to be my witness." And I'm like, "Dude, there's no way in God's green earth I'm ever going in these caverns. You know, forget about it. I didn't come to Florida to get killed by some monster. You know what I mean? I'd rather deal with, thugs in an alleyway in the Bronx than, dealing with some monster in its caverns, you know?"
Right.
And then he says to me, he says, "We got to make a deal." He says, "You can't tell anybody about it, because I don't want the police coming in here and, demolition in these caverns and killing these creatures, because they just want to be left alone, you know." And I said, he goes, "You can't even tell your cousin Anthony." I said, "I won't tell anybody. I promise you, I won't tell anybody." So the end of that summer rolls around. Me and Anthony are getting ready to fly back to New York. I said, "Ben, I can't wait to get home and tell my brother what happened, because my brother's a parapsychologist. He's going to lose his mind. He's going to want to fly to Florida to visit my sister." And my cousin goes, "No, you can't tell anybody." I go, "What do you mean I can't tell anybody?" He goes, No, if you tell anybody, everybody's going to think we're, assholes and, and make fools out of us. And then I'm going to have to kick your ass." And my cousin Anthony was a big dude. Even as a kid, he was a big dude.
Mm-hmm.
And we fought all the time, because he was more like a brother to me than a cousin,
Right.
And that's what we did. We fought all the time, And I was like, nah, I didn't feel like getting my ass kicked by my cousin because I knew he would have kicked my ass. I never told anybody. I never told anybody about the story till 40 years later when my brother wrote his book. My brother wrote a book, Frank Santariga, Paranormal Family and Friends, and he used this story. And he was like, why didn't you tell me this, all these years ago? Because promised Anthony I would never tell anybody. Who the hell wants to get him pissed off and have him, fight? I got to fight him,
Right.
And he goes, my brother researched it and he validated it with my sister, my brother-in-law, and everything, that was like my first experience of the Bigfoot stuff, other than reading about it at the library in school. When I was in grade school, every Friday we used to have to go to the library and take out books for the weekend. And I was always taking out the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, ghosts, UFOs, whatever. That was my thing. And we always had books in my house, too. My brother was an investigator and a researcher, so there was always books on everything. So, I was always reading about that stuff. But, not in a million years that I remember telling my sister, I didn't come to Florida to be killed by a monster, when I'm dealing with thugs in the back alleys of the Bronx on my way home every night, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just, but it was surreal, and then the guy from the Skunk Ape Museum in Florida contacted me because he read my brother's book and he read the account. He wanted to put it in his museum, and I said, okay, no problem. And then after he did it, this woman, someone in that Moneth or something like that. She was a BFRO person.
Mm-hmm.
And she read it. She had read it in the Skunk Ape Museum website, and she wanted to put it in the and she did an amazing thing because she actually got Google Earth photos of Sunshine Acres.
Uh-huh.
And she lived in the next town over when she was a kid.
Oh, wow.
So she was growing up there in that summer when I was there visiting. So she and her father had a business in Davie. So she was seeing all the same stuff I was seeing on the news and the newspapers and everything like that. And her uncle was a cop at Cooper City, and they had a special book that they used to put all the skunk ape calls on. It never went into the regular log. There was a special log just for skunk ape calls. And
wow.
She put all this information on my account on the BFRO website. And if you go back and you look for, South Florida, Davie, Florida, whatever, I forgot what the number was. But if you go back and you read about it, and I think I sent it to you. I think you
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, and she did an amazing job on that article.
Yes, that was, man, I read that entire thing when you sent it to me, and it took me a little while because it's pretty long. But man,
yeah, it's long.
I couldn't look away from it. I could not look away from it, dude. It was, man, there was a lot of info. There's newspaper clippings, y'all. I mean, it's the real deal. The real deal.
Yes. Yeah, she did an amazing job. And it's funny, all that newspaper clippings and all of that stuff that she put into my article,
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading them like every day in the newspaper as a kid down there, looking forward to seeing where was it spotted next, or waiting for the news to see if there was another report on it somewhere else, but never in a million years did I ever think it would be in our backyard.
Wow. So
yeah, if any,
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if anybody's got any questions they want to ask, now's the time.
All right, y'all. Q&A is opened up. Fire away with your questions. My question, Al, is this encounter what got you started in this field?
Yeah, well, like I said, I was always into it. I remember seeing the Patty movie, right?
Uh-huh.
It was like a preluder to a movie. I forgot, what was at the movies to see, but like on a Saturday afternoon we'd go to the movies, and it was a prelude to the movie. And I remember watching that with Patterson and Giblin, and
Right.
turn into like my best friends. And because I had my two best friends always believe in that stuff as well, and turn into my best friends, And I'm not psychic by any stretch of the imagination, but the vibe I got the moment I seen that video was, that's real. There's no bullshit about that. That's not a guy in a suit. That's real.
Yeah.
And that was the vibe I got. And that was before everybody started analyzing every little aspect of it. I mean, I just, boom, it hit me. I mean, I've always got gut feelings my whole life. And that moment, seeing that movie, seeing that video, and the beginning of the movie, the gut feeling said, that's real. And I always believed that.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so the Patty really got me started,
Uh-huh.
but that experience just like kind of took it to a whole different level, And I'll be honest with you, I will be brutally honest with you. When I got back from Florida, I would say for 2 years, I couldn't sleep at night because I had whatever they call it, PTSD or whatever it's called.
PTSD? Yeah.
Because my bedroom was very small and narrow,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a big picture window in my bedroom.
Oh, wow.
So I would always think that this creature was going to reach in through the picture window and grab me and just pull me out of my bed because
Right.
the room was small, it was like a prison cell, my room. Because what my father did was he closed off the front porch and made a bedroom out of it. He was a carpenter, and that was my room. Yeah, but he had always left a big window in there to get light in, and it just, I mean, I know I was living in the city and it was ridiculous to think that, but after that experience in South Florida, I couldn't get that out of my head. Like, if that thing would have reached in that big picture window of my sister's house, it could have put me and my cousin out by the heads and just popped our heads.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, for 2 years, solid 2 years, I couldn't sleep.
Yeah, and you saying that reminds me of the Legend of Boggy Creek when that creature reached in that window. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't help either when I seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
yeah, that movie got me too, man. I couldn't sleep near a window for a while. For a while. Dude from Texas has got a question. He says, "Did the giant 9 foot Bigfoot have an eye color?"
Yes, it was there. Its eyes were red. Now I don't know if that was just the reflection from the floodlights hitting him in the eye or not, but his eyes were red. That's what I seen, red eyes. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Sevilla Irwin, she contacted me. She's an artist for Cryptid artist,
Uh huh.
and she did artist of the creature I seen. I think it was in that article as well. She may have been in that article as well. Pictures of her drawing, because the
Right.
one I seen had canines.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing, dude. That's amazing. And you know what? As now that I'm thinking about it, because like I said, this whole last week I've been busy. I think that there is a picture of that in that article you sent me. I think there is.
Yeah, there may be. Yeah, I mean, I remember that hooking me up. This woman Ree hooked me up with Sevilla, and so I think Sevilla was in Texas at the time, and she contacted me, and we went back and forth like 100 times on the phone. Okay, change this, change that, make this wider, make the mouth wider, make the arms longer.
Right.
It had canines, the teeth weren't square. Just back and forth a million times, and she was like, "How about now?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "But the only thing about the picture is she was supposed to do one in color because it had its hair was dark, but it had a red tint to it when the floodlights hit it. You know what I mean? So that's the one thing you don't get from the artist rendering is the red tint of the fur because it's in black and white.
Right. So another question that popped up is, did the 9 foot Bigfoot have long hair like you see in skunk ape pics?
No, it didn't have long hair what's that one that they showed down in Florida all the time? I can't think of the name of the. It looked like an orangutan. No,
Right.
This did not look like an orangutan. This thing looked like King Kong. That's what it
Wow.
looked like to me. Yeah. Now his hair
Wow.
was short like a gorilla's hair, but it was just covered in hair, the whole body.
So it was more like a fine hair. It wasn't. Would you say it wasn't really coarse?
I would say it was coarse, but it wasn't bushy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And were you able to see like any muscle structure, like definable shoulders, like real muscular shoulders, or like a real broad chest, anything like that?
Yeah, oh yeah, you could see the muscle tone underneath this thing. When I tell you, and I'm a guy who's worked out my whole life
Mm-hmm.
and exercised and martial arts, and stuff
Right.
like that. And all my cousins are big muscle guys, and they all have arms like the size of my legs. This thing, if it was 4 feet wide, it was an inch. This I can't tell you how wide. I can't explain. I can't get it across just how massive this thing was. I mean, it was 4 feet wide, and
Mm-hmm.
it looked like it was 3 feet thick, and it was just massive, just
Wow.
massive.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
so Steve Riley's got an interesting question. He posted, when the police car hit it, did it bleed?
I didn't see any blood. I see the thing go down because it hit it right on its left knee, which buckled the creature's knee,
Mm-hmm.
and the creature went down. And then, you know what? Funny thing about that, when they were fixing that sign, like 2 days later, like the town came in to fix the sign,
Mm-hmm.
I heard the maintenance guys bitching about the sign, like, these signs are not supposed to bend because they're made
Wow.
for like hurricane winds.
Right.
But this thing just bent it right in half. They couldn't open it back up. They had to just put a whole new sign on. And I heard two guys talking, saying these things are not supposed to bend. What the hell hit this thing? Because these things are made for hurricane force winds. They're not supposed to bend. But
Right.
that thing just, and I was laughing because I knew what hit it. I was
Right.
there, but I
No
wasn't going to
joke.
say anything because they would have thought I was crazy.
So so I remember you saying, and when I read it, that this Bigfoot used one fist and smashed down on that car.
No, use both fists.
Both
Both
fists.
fists.
Okay, both fists.
Both fists like a hammer punch.
Uh huh. Right.
Oh, both fists. And when it did, the whole back end of the car came off the ground. Yeah.
My question to you is, what were those officers' reaction as that happened?
Well, I remember looking at the deputy because we had our high beams on, so we had the thing lit up like it was daytime.
Right.
And I remember the high beams going through the back of the deputy's car, and he was by himself. You know what I mean? And I just remember him like holding onto the steering wheel for like dear life. I couldn't see what his face looked like because I was looking at the back of his head. I remember glimpsing down at the deputy in the car
Mm-hmm.
and seeing like him holding onto the steering wheel as the car was coming back down and bouncing after the creature hit it. And I remember looking back at the creature, and the creature just had like rage in its face, just rage. It was so mad.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I mean, who knows what it would have done to that deputy if we weren't behind it in our car with the lights on, with the high beams hitting it, and the sheriff coming down from the other end of the development with his lights on and everything. So who knows? I mean, it may have ripped the door off that car and grabbed that deputy. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Who
I'm
knows?
speculating, of course, but with all those people around, I think he just wanted to get out of Dodge.
Yeah, I imagine. With that much lighting, I imagine. Steve Riley kind of asked maybe a similar question, but maybe we can go a little more into it. He goes, what happened to the police officer in the car? That's a little open-ended. Did anything happen to the officers afterwards? Like, were they ever put back on duty, do you know? Or did they ever speak to anyone about it?
I believe that both the sheriff and the deputy were back on patrol the very next night. Just the deputy was in a different car. I think that was his area to patrol.
Yeah.
When you have your own route, like a FedEx driver or a UPS driver, that was his area, and I think the sheriff was just there because of all the. As a matter of fact, there was another horse rancher that lived maybe a quarter mile away from us, an eighth of a mile away, and he was good friends with my brother-in-law Joe. And when we flew back to New York at the end of August, when we got back to New York, like the very next week we got back to New York, my mother was talking to my sister down in Florida, and she said, put Al on the phone. And I got on the phone, and she goes, you know Ralph? And I go, yeah, I knew Ralph, because Ralph had the horses, And he says, yeah, the skunk ape went to Ralph's farm and killed a horse.
Wow.
And what happened was when it ripped like a beam or something, or a couple of beams off of the barn to kill this horse. But when it did, when it left, it stepped on one of the beams, and it left a blood trail. And this guy, Ralph, got a posse together. My brother-in-law was part of that posse, and they tracked the blood all the way back into the swamp, But once the creature got into the water, into the canal systems, it was gone. And she said, yeah, they said that if they would have got it that night, they would have had a body that night. He said, because Ralph had about 20 guys on horsebacks, and Joe, my brother-in-law, was wonderful. And I was like, Jesus, it's still going on even after we left,
Right. Wow. Dude from Texas had another question. He asked, do you believe they can speak telepathically?
Yes. Please don't use the term mind speak around me. It makes me insane. I can't stand that terminology.
Right.
I think it belittles the field. In a field where there's so much ridicule, to use the terminology mind speak just makes it sound like you're really belittling it. So I use telepathically. Yes, I believe so.
Okay, that's a really good answer. I do too. I mean, from what I've heard, there's been, in what I've read in Cherokee legend, that there's been one or two Bigfoots that have been known to like either read your thoughts or speak telepathically to actually lure people into the woods. And when I read that, I just thought that was amazing because, I mean, we all know these Native Americans are very, very sacred. And, of course, with the Native Americans come skinwalkers, and we all know skinwalkers are nothing to play around with. Nothing to play around with.
Yeah, skinwalker is a whole different animal, absolutely, yeah. My psychic for my team is, she's from Arkansas, and she's like third, fourth generation psychic, but her grandmother and her great grandmother were all Cherokee, and she calls the Sasquatches the guardians of the woods. That's what she calls them, and she absolutely believes that they can communicate telepathically. Now, I've never attempted that when I go out on my hot spot, my location. I've never attempted it, but that's something that's on the to-do list when I go out there.
Right.
Yeah, it's coming up next.
So I got a good question for you, and I know this will help me out a lot. What do you look for specifically when you go on an investigation?
Okay. I got a good one for you. Yesterday, a guy reached out to me, claimed he had an experience at a location that I'm very familiar with, that I know is very squatchy. It's a place of high strangeness. It's got nothing to do with my sacred site, but we've done investigations at this location as well. My cousin has actually had an experience at this location. He was there bow hunting. He doesn't believe in Bigfoot. Doesn't want to hear about Bigfoot. Well, he was at this location last year, 2 years ago, up in the tree stand bow hunting. And here in New York, when you're bow hunting, you're not allowed to carry any kind of sidearm, you know.
Right.
So he's up in the tree bow hunting, and he hears something coming through the woods, and he's in an actual bowl. There's like high ridges all around him, and he's in the lower part of this. And he's up in the tree stand, and he hears this thing come barreling through the woods. He said, man, it sounded like a bulldozer coming through the woods. It got right up to the tree line and let out a scream. He said, cuz, let me tell you, it went through me like a bass drum at a Kiss concert, he said. It just nailed me to the screen. I felt the vibration vibrate my bones. At that point, he lowered his bow down, climbed out of the tree, and got in his Jeep and drove away. He says, I'll never hunt there again. And he's hunted at this location for years. And I told him they were there, but he didn't believe me. But I went out with a guy yesterday. He's a newbie. And he says, hey, Al, he says, I think I had an experience. I go, show me. So I think I found the footprint. So we went to this location, and we looked, and actual print that he found was a bear print. I said, this is a black bear print. I said, I know it kind of looks like a Bigfoot print, but it's not. It's a black bear print, you know. And I explained to him all the intricate details to the footprint, how the back foot steps on the front foot, extends it even longer, yada, yada, yada. And he said, okay, you know, he goes, but I was sitting here and I had a rock thrown at me. And I said, okay, well, you know, yesterday we were deep in the woods yesterday. We were deep. It was dead quiet. There wasn't any animals to be found anywhere, which is a red flag for me, you know what I mean? Because there should have been all kinds of animals going. I didn't hear anything. You know, he had mentioned it. What do you think about that? I said, I mean, I don't know. Could be natural, could be unnatural. I did some knocks. I didn't get any knocks back. I did some whoops. I didn't get any whoops back. So we started hiking, and, you know, we're walking through the woods, and I'm looking, and man, we're hiking, and I'm not seeing any kind of sign anywhere. And he goes, well, what do you think this is? I said, no, you know, I was showing him, this is man-made. These piles that you're seeing on the ground here, man-made stuff, you know, you could see the way people, when they clean up, like the Parks Department, they pile everything up. It looks like almost like a den or something, you know, but they tend to pile it up in a round kind of thing. I said, this is man-made. Look, you could even tell the sticks are cut, yada, yada, yada. And then he was looking at, you know, down limbs and stuff like that, things that were leaning. I was like, no, what, you know, I was showing you, it's just debunking everything. Look at the branch above this tree. All these branches are broken. Obviously, this branch came down from this tree. So, you know, we're walking, and like we get to a point on the path where it goes three separate ways, you know, and it goes north, west, and south. And he goes, which way from here? And I said, I'm being pulled south. Let's go south. I'm being pulled south. So we hike on that trail, man. We go about a quarter of a mile, and we come across the first footprint that I sent you. I sent you the first footprint. Right. And he goes, you know, he goes, oh, I wish I had brought something to cast it. I said, well, I actually did bring something to cast it, but this is too, you know, it's not deep enough. Because yesterday was a good day to go out, because they had rains here in New York for 2 days. Right. So the dirt was wet, and there was a lot of water running. So there was opportunity for footprints, your tracks. So we found something. I said, yeah, this is definitely something. I wear a size 13 boot, you know, and from heel to toe on the outside it's 14 inches. And I put it up against the track, and it was about the same size, 14 inches. Yeah. We took pictures of that. And then once we found that track, I started pointing out stuff left and right. I said, look at this tree right here. You see how it's twisted? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, well, couldn't it have just grown like that? I said, yeah, it could have. But it's coming out of the main root ball. And there's 4 trees coming out of this. There's 4 branches coming out of this root ball. But only one of them is twisted. This doesn't happen naturally. If this was by itself, just one lone branch growing out of a root ball, then it could be natural. I said, but you see there's 3 other of them all attached to the same root ball, and only this one is twisted. Then we found something that looked like it was a javelin that was jammed deep into the dirt. And we got a picture of that. Then we got the bends. We started finding the bends and the breaks and the arches. Didn't find any X's though, but we did find arches. And then we're hiking deeper and deeper, and I'm being pulled off into the woods, deeper into the woods, and we found a kill. There was definitely there was no carcass of a deer or anything, no bones or anything, but you could see where something had ripped all the fur off of this deer. Mm-hmm. And it was like, and it looked like it was in an area that something would use as, like it would bed down in. And I told them, I said, this is either, the way it was set up, there was down trees in 3 directions, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, this is either being used as a place to, jump creatures as they go by, using it as an ambush point, right? Or they're using this as a corral to chase the deer into. And then when the deer get in here, they can't get out. Maybe one of them are jumping down on it and breaking its neck. And then 100 yards from that was an area that was on a high ridge plateau, which were, and then we found more deer fur. And I was like, this is a good spot to actually sit down and eat, because it's up high, the plateau. People can walk by you on both sides, never see it. And I was just pointing out all kinds of stuff, debunking this and, that, and this looks man-made, and this looks like it's a natural, and this looks like it's squatchy to me as far as, we found a couple of small structures that, to me, that looked like juveniles made them. You know what I mean? Like maybe practicing copying their parents, know?
Right.
And then we found another print not far from there that had a mid-tarsal arch in it, break in it. And I sent you a picture of that one as well.
Yes.
And then he had to get going because, he had kids and everything, and he had a babysitter. He had to get home. And I said, sure, absolutely, He goes, thank you for, taking me out and showing me all this stuff and teaching me. And I was like, listen, I live to be out in the fields. That's what I live for. Whether I'm doing UFO research, ghost hunting, or cryptid investigations, I'm boots on the ground. I love to be out and investigating. That's my thing, So I enjoyed my day. We must have put in like 10 miles, but man, we found some stuff though. But he goes, how did you know to be, pulled to the left, when we got to, and I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know if it was the energy of the kill that was pulling me that way, or just all the energy of the structures and all the stuff we found. But this is the direction I was being pulled in, and I usually go where I'm being pulled.
Right. All right, Al, we got 3 more questions left in 5 minutes for this topic. And I'm gonna start.
Okay.
And I'm gonna start with Southern Guy. He wanted to know, have you ever heard of a Bigfoot befriending somebody?
Not necessarily, no. Not that I can recollect, like anybody having one as a pet or something like that. Not necessarily. I mean, I've heard stories from people over the years interviewing people where they were rescued by Sasquatches, like, stuff where they were in the woods, they were lost, and the Sasquatch would just, like, take them to an area where, like, just outside of a campsite, where people would find them, you know what I mean? Another time I interviewed a guy who said that he was actually stuck in the swamp, in the mud, and he couldn't get out of the mud, and he's freaking out because he thought he was going to die in the mud. And he was young. He was a young kid. He was like, 10-year-old kid. I don't know if he was looking for turtles or what he was doing in the mud, but he said a female Sasquatch plucked him out of the mud like he was plucking out a carrot, and then just put him on a road. You know, like it was a lonely road, but still it put him on a road where if a car came down the street would find him. And eventually someone did drive down the street and see this kid covered in mud and stopped and said, you know, you need help. So a couple of times I've heard that they've rescued people, but I've never heard anyone like befriending one. And you know, there was another story I heard where a little girl had a playhouse in her backyard, and she was having play dates with, you know, with a baby Sasquatch.
Wow.
And that the mother was just outside the clubhouse making sure nothing happened to the baby, and then, you know, the little girl would like give it a doll, and the Sasquatch I guess it was I don't know if it was a female Sasquatch, the baby, but would take the doll and then jump in its mother's arms, and the mother, and it was like the mother would bring him there like on the weekends, because that's when the kid was there when she wasn't home from school, and the kid, they would play with each other for like a couple hours in the playhouse, and then the kid would get called into the house for lunch or whatever, or dinner, and they would just go separate ways. Heard stories like that, but never actually having, like, you know, one as a pet.
Wow, that's amazing, dude. That really is amazing to hear something like that.
Well, you see, that doesn't surprise me, because you're talking about an innocent child that's not scared by a young creature. You know what I mean? It's like to a small child with a little puppy. You know what I mean? They're not afraid of one another, and they bond. You know?
Yeah.
And yeah, stuff like that. I've heard stories like that, but no one having one in the barn that, you know.
Right.
They played baseball with or anything.
Dude from Texas wants to know, what are your thoughts on broken branches, X marks? Are they territorial or a different message?
You tell the dude from Texas that I'm not telling him. You tell him that.
You hear that, dude? He's keeping that a secret.
Now, I think it's a little bit of both. I really do. I think some are territorial markers. I also think some are directionals. They'll leave like when they break a branch over and it's pointed, the downside is pointed to the south. Maybe that's the way they're telling the other ones that are coming in, this is the trail to take, they go down this way. I think arches and X's are definitely territorial markers, not only for their clan, but other clans or other creatures that may be in the area, you know?
Wow, it's amazing you say that, Al, because the 3 that I found on my property have all been pointed towards the south.
Okay. So maybe there's a trail there. Is there like a game trail that goes that way? It could be something like that.
Yes, it's over. Okay. It's over the main trail through them woods.
There you go.
Wow, that's crazy. Lisa wanted me to ask if you have had a case that you knew was a specific cryptid and it was being blamed on a different cryptid.
No, I've never had a case of mistaken identity. No.
Okay. Hope that answers your question.
It's pretty. You know, anybody with any kind of experience in the field can tell the difference between one kill and another. You know what I mean?
Right.
Dog men destroy the animals that they kill. You know what I mean? Even if they're not eating them. And Sasquatches really don't tend to kill animals that they're not going to eat unless they're pissed off at you for some reason. Then they may come in and be jealous or kill 20 chickens for no reason, something like that. But most of the times they take what they eat, and when they do kill them, it's usually a clean kill where they just snap the neck. I was out with another group called Bigfoot Researchers of the Hudson Valley, and we were in their hot spot, and I was being pulled. We were in this location where there there were tree structures that were just enormous tree structures. I mean, enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, Gail, the leader of the group, she felt that not only there was a meaning to the tree structures, that these tree structures were so enormous. It was like telephone poles on top of trees that were like 60 feet high. And she felt that that location was a sacred location. It may have been a burial site,
Mm-hmm.
but the whole time we were there, I was being pulled to the west. And being pulled, I think I got it on video. I got so many chips. One of my videos, I was filming, and I was being pulled to, and I actually crossed over a road and went out to someone else's property. And there in the gully was a deer that had its stomach ripped open and all its vital organs taken out. But none of the meat from the deer was taken.
Wow.
Like there wasn't missing a leg, and you could see that its head was snapped because the head was just pointed in the wrong direction. But it was like something had ripped its stomach open, went right down its spleen, and took all the organs out of it. And they were like, "How the hell did you notice was here?" And I was like, "I don't know. I was just being pulled over this way, and I didn't know what I was going to find. And here you go, So, I mean, now I don't think that was a dog man. I think if that was a dog man that would have done that, that deer probably would have been missing its head.
Right.
There would have been chunks of it all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
All right, Al, we didn't hit that 1 hour mark. So I'm going to take a little something from our pal Marvin. And I'm going to say, now mind you, we are going to switch and talk about the most terrifying cryptid, Dogman. So Al, with Dogman, I'm fairly new to this cryptid. I've been doing a lot of reading on it, and as the further and further I get into reading about this cryptid and researching it, it gets more and more interesting, especially talking to Paul Chafin and Jody Cook. I mean, I've learned a lot just from those two interviews. What can you tell me about Dogman?
Well, what I can tell you is don't believe everything you read, number one.
Right.
And number two, I would say that they're not all bloodthirsty killers, because if there would be a lot more body parts in the woods.
Right.
So, I mean, I know they give the appearance of being deep, dark, and demonic. You know what I mean? They're very intimidating.
Yes.
When and they give you that. I mean, when you look one in the eye, and it gives you it intimidates. It makes you, like that primal fear. It draws the primal fear out of you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really think they kill as many people as people say they do. You know what I mean? I just don't. I think there's more than one type.
Right.
I don't think it's just the flesh and blood type that most people think they are. I was lucky enough to be sat at a table with one of the most world-renowned psychics, and I was able to pick their brain. Turned out they were a very, very nice person,
Mm-hmm.
and they let me. When I'm around people like that, I tend to pick people's brains. Most of the time, when I ask a question, it's not because I don't know; it's because I want to know what you think.
Right.
And I asked this person, what do you know about the subject? And they told me, this is what they told me. They said, listen, there are more than one type. They said, there's the one type that's flesh and blood.
Mm-hmm.
May have been here since the beginning of time, may have been dropped off by aliens. Who knows? She goes, I don't know. But there is a flesh and blood type. Okay? So type 2 is interdimensional.
Wow.
So when they said, when these people said they shoot them and if they track the blood trail to a certain location and the blood trail ends.
Yes.
They told me, well, that's when these creatures go into a different dimension to either get first aid or die or whatever, and they're into. And then she said the third type are the demonic entities. These are the ones that people shoot and the bullet goes right through and it doesn't hurt them.
Right.
These are the ones that people see that just pop into their house. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Through the wall. These things have never been human. They're not human. They're supernatural. And this is what this person was telling me, and it, I wasn't, I was like, that's really where my mind was at anyway. You know what I mean? But I had no way of validating that. It was just a theory of my own. Listen, let's face it. It's all theory and conjecture. Nobody has any scientific proof about any of the stuff that we talk about. There's no experts in the field.
Yes.
Please, there are two kinds of people. There are experiencers, people who experience this stuff, and then there are people with more experience that have been studying it for longer. That's it. There are no experts. So it's all theory and conjecture, okay? That's number one. But when a world-renowned psychic tells me this, someone I know is legit, and being a guy from New York who thinks all psychics are full of shit, okay, it took my team psychic to prove to me that there were actually legitimate psychics. When we first started our team, I tested her all the time, and she always busted me when I tested her, and she was always right no matter what crazy stuff she told me was going to happen. We never went into an investigation expecting what she said to happen. We basically would laugh at what she told us, and then at the end of the night, everything she said that would happen happened. But this is what this woman tells me, and I was like, okay, it makes sense to me. Because, I don't believe that these creatures can't be killed. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact that the ones that are flesh and blood, and I know for a fact that the ones that are interdimensional, when they're here in our realm, they're flesh and blood.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when they're here in our realm, in our dimension, they can be killed. They can be killed. Now, is killing them easy? Absolutely not. There are certain locations on these creatures' bodies where they are vulnerable. I'm not going to tell anybody where they are because I don't want anybody to go out trying to shoot these things and getting themselves killed.
Absolutely not.
But I know for a fact there are not only with the dogman, but with the Sasquatch as well. There are parts of their body where they're vulnerable to being killed and they're susceptible to injury. And it's just getting that shot off. I know that there are guns. We have guns. I've got guns in my house that will put them down, and I'm not talking about 50 caliber gun. I'm talking about a nice 30-30, 30-06, 12 gauge with a slug in it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You hit them at the right spot, you will put them down, but you have to hit them at the right spot.
Right.
And it may take more than one shot, but they can be killed. Okay, so don't tell me they can't be killed. I'm not buying that.
I don't buy that either, Al. Especially something that walks this earth physically. In my opinion, if it bleeds, it can be taken down.
Just think about these guys who hunt elephants in Africa. These elephants are humongous.
Yes.
How many tons are they? And they shoot it with a bullet, and the thing just drops.
Yes.
Because
You're right.
They shoot it in. It's one spot where it's vulnerable, where it's weak, and that's the spot you have to hit it in to put it down.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a big animal. Very, very huge and aggressive. They can
monster.
be. Yes.
It's a monster. Yeah.
Yes.
You have a bull elephant's charging you, man. You better be cool under pressure because you're not getting more than one shot.
You show right. Right.
No, but those are my opinions. I think there are three different types. And I was talking to a UFO person today who was telling me about different types of aliens. And one of the types of aliens that this person mentioned, because we're getting ready to do a UFO symposium here in New York in the upcoming months, and we've been invited to speak at the presentation. So I was picking all my friends' brains, who are big UFO guys, and they were telling me that there was, I forgot, I got it written down somewhere, how many different aliens that are actually known to exist. And one of the aliens they claim is a dogman looking creature, with a werewolf.
Wow.
And I mean, I that was like, I thought that about the Sasquatches many years ago, but that thought never crossed my mind as far as the dogman, because I always knew about the Sarasiphales, and I always knew about the Likings. So they've been here in one form or another for thousands and thousands of years, but never thought that they were actually coming from a different outer space, terrestrial, extraterrestrial kind of creature,
Right.
So.
Right. So, with that being said, have you ever heard of any encounters? I'm sure you have with the tons of experience you have, Al. Have you ever heard of any encounters of someone encountering a dog man and actually seeing a UFO either in the sky nearby or going by?
No, I've heard that with Sasquatches, not with dogmen.
Wow, really?
And I know. B brought up that thing about the dog pack on the Paranormal Witness. That they said there was lights in the sky, and then they heard these howls or whatever.
Right.
I spoke to the woman from that show. I met her at a symposium, and I asked her about it, and she said that was something that the network made up. There were never lights in the sky.
Oh,
it
really?
Never happened. Yeah.
Wow.
She said that never happened. There was never lights. They embellished it a little bit to make it a little bit more entertaining,
Yeah.
But she told me straight up to my face that never happened. I was like, okay, that's cool. I appreciate your honesty,
Right.
Because just like you were asking me about that question, I was curious and I was asking her, because I've heard it with Sasquatches all the time, the time, but I've never heard it with dogmen. Now, we've had experiences in the woods where we've seen balls of light and then Bigfoots show up. We've had experiences in the woods where we've seen UFOs and Bigfoots show up,
Wow.
But I've never experienced UFOs and dogmen or balls of light and dogmen, which I believe, not so much for the dogmen, but for the Bigfoots, I believe that's either them coming into our dimension or leaving our dimension, when you see those balls of lights. But no, I've never seen any, I've never heard anyone mention, and I know a lot of UFO people, and they talk about, and they'll talk about anything, and when they do their investigations, they want every little intricate piece of information, whether they think it's important or not, and stuff like that. They would write down, and they would definitely mention to me. Yeah, absolutely not.
Wow. So, Sir Brian, and forgive me if I mispronounced this, Brian, Sir Brian Bowden wanted me to ask you, has there ever been a person who stated they were an alpha and lived to tell about it?
Wait a minute. What did Sir Brian want to know?
He wanted me to ask, has there ever been a person who stated they were an alpha and lived to tell about it?
If there's ever been a person who stated they were an alpha and lived to tell about it, yes. Sir Brian lived an experience where I almost left him behind. That's Brian's my partner.
Yeah, that's what he said earlier in the chat.
Yeah, Brian's my partner, and we were doing a cemetery investigation at a cemetery for an abandoned mental asylum,
Mm-hmm.
and we heard the craziest howls all night long. We had dogs going off all around us, and then this thing howled, and I got it on audio on one of my videos. We got it. I was filming that night. We got it, and it was just the biggest, deepest, loudest growl or bark or whatever you want to call it, howl.
Uh-huh.
Let's call it a howl. It
Okay.
made all the other dogs in the neighborhood shut right up. And as a matter of fact, Sir Brian has like the best hearing in the world. And we were walking along the cemetery, which doesn't have any tombstones, just crosses with numbers on it.
Right.
It's a very, very eerie place. And I was filming, again, I had my IR camera going, and Brian was on my right, I was on his left, and Brian turned to me and said, did you hear that? And I said, I didn't hear anything. And when we reviewed the audio on that camera, you hear something growl right in between us.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if it was a dog man that was in a different spectrum of light that we couldn't see,
Mm-hmm.
or if it was something demonic that was in the cemetery, but it was scary, scary growl. And I'm glad I didn't hear it at the time, but that night when we were actually leaving the cemetery, we had to park about a quarter mile away up the road, and it was just one street light on this road that led to a hiking trail, which was on the other side of the street from the cemetery. And we're walking up to my Jeep. I had my Jeep parked underneath the light, and as we're walking up, I turned to Brian. I go, look, behind my Jeep, there's eye shine. And he goes, where? Now, we have pretty bright headlamps, maybe 100, 200 luma headlamps, you know?
Yeah.
And behind my Jeep, you can see amber eye shine behind my Jeep.
Oh, wow.
So we stopped. We don't have any weapons on us because we thought this cemetery was going to be like every other cemetery in the city, but it wasn't. It was in the middle of the woods, and I think all we had on us was pepper spray. We didn't even have our survival knives. So I said, wait, let's stop. Let's evaluate what we're walking into here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at it, and we're checking it. We're, and Brian and I are great because he thinks out of the box, and I'm a black and white kind of guy, So
Right.
we kind of put our heads together, and we're looking at it, and I go, well, amber eye shine. We heard that crazy howl. We heard that growl. He heard that growl in the cemetery. We found tree structure that day in the woods that looked like the skeleton of an umbrella, right?
Right.
If you opened up an umbrella without the cloth on it,
Yeah.
but the trees that were jammed into the tree, there was like 20 trees the size of telephone poles jammed into this one tree, went around in a circle.
Oh, wow.
And all of these trees were 30, 40, 50 feet long.
Jeez.
And not one of them touched the ground. I mean, I'm 6 foot, Brian's 6'2". We put our hands up, we're almost reach 8 feet high, and we could barely touch the bottom of these trees. What the hell grabbed these trees and jammed them all into this one giant oak tree, made this giant circle, and these trees are like telephone poles. So, and I felt like we were being drawn into the woods because we kept walking deeper. And I said, you know what,
Right.
Brian, I think we got to stop and we got to back out. We got to regroup. I feel like we're being drawn into a trap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
got that vibe, like. Anyway, we're walking out that night. We're looking at it, and we're looking at it like, okay, the amber eye shine, But the weird thing is, I thought the creature was sitting on its butt, okay, like a dog sitting on its butt, hindquarters, right?
Right.
But if that was the case, this was the biggest dog I ever seen because its eye shine was at like the 5 foot level,
Mm-hmm.
And then Brian said, well, maybe it's not sitting on its butt, Al. Maybe it's sitting on its haunches. And I was like, oh, ding, 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 ding. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's why it's so tall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as we're getting closer and closer to the truck, I unlocked the doors and everything. And whatever this thing was, and we both got the same vibe. Brian's a little bit more psychic than I. He does it for remote viewing and stuff, and he's pretty damn good at it. We both had the same vibe that we're dealing with a dog man. And we both had the same vibe that this creature was hunting that night. It was hunting that trail. Now, whether or not it was hunting deer coming down that hiking trail, or it was hunting the people who own that Jeep, I don't know. But it was definitely hunting, because it was about 5 feet off the trail in the bushes.
Wow.
So we're looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm not taking my eyes off of this thing, and I got my headlamp on it. And Brian says, I got to go relieve myself. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I got to piss. I said, get in the car, Brian. We'll go. I'll drive you, halfway down the street. You piss down the street. He goes, no, you don't understand. I got to go right now. So like, I was like, okay. He had to go. So he's urinating. I'm unloading all our gear into the back of my Jeep. I jump on the other side of the truck, and I pop the door open, the driver's side, the passenger side door, and I'm trying to put that door between him and this creature.
Right.
Because he's got his back to this creature.
Yeah.
I got the door, the rear door open. I got the rear door between me and this creature, but I'm looking at this creature through my glass. And then all of a sudden now, as we're getting closer, we're thinking, oh, maybe it's just a deer and it's going to jump up and run away. This thing never ran. This thing stood its ground.
Wow.
It did not move. And then when we got there and Brian started to urinate, this thing went into camo mode. And I tell you, it must have closed its eyes. That's the only way I can think of. Either that or it shut the light off in its eyes. Because when all of a sudden, I didn't see its eyes anymore. And the vibe I got was that this thing had dropped down and was belly crawling towards us. And I told Brian at that point, I don't know where it is anymore. I'm getting the vibe that it's crawling up on you. Because you have your back to it.
Yeah.
Get in the truck. I'm like, get in the truck now, or I'm leaving your fat ass here, And I backed the Jeep up to where he was, because I wanted to keep that passenger side door between him and this creature.
Mm-hmm.
And he jumped into the truck, closed the door, and we tore out of there. And man, did we just dodge a bullet tonight? You know what I mean? Holy crap, that was crazy. And there was so much more to that story that went to it, but that's just the dog man part of it.
Wow, that sounds wild, man. Whether I had to relieve myself or just honestly shit down my pants, I'd have never turned my back to that creature knowing it was there. I mean, you probably would have had a nasty smelling Jeep by end of that night.
I just wanted him to get in the Jeep and piss on the other side of the road.
Right.
This way we could have, if it came across the road, we could have actually seen it go. So that was where that one street light was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
But he just had to go so bad. And he didn't want to go at the cemetery because he didn't want to disrespect the dead, you know?
Right.
Which I'm all for.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, like I said, if we would have known we were getting into that night, we would have went with our 10-inch machetes and our 18-inch, 18-inch machetes and our 10-inch survival knives, and the pepper spray. But I think I only had normally we go out with 4 cans. I think we only had 2 cans, 1 each, because we thought we were going to the cemetery. We had no idea that this cemetery was in the middle of the woods, where no one knew where it was. They didn't have any signs for it. There was no parking lot. You had to walk up a bridle path, a mile to get to it. It was just really crazy, weird, and there's no doubt about it that whatever built that structure was definitely not Sasquatch. I had never seen a Sasquatch structure like that before in my life. We both got the same vibe that it was dog man, and we both got the same vibe when that thing howled, because all day long the dogs were going crazy in the neighborhood, and then this thing goes off, and you could have heard a pin drop, Wow. And whatever growled between us, or if it wasn't between us and it just kind of sent that sound,
Mm-hmm.
our way, and the audio just picked it up, but it sounded like it was right between, and it was a gutter kind of growl, just the kind that puts chills down your spine. And then that thing just waiting, and I swear to God, to this day, and I'll swear on this to my grave, that creature was hunting, and the vibe I got, it was hunting who was ever in that Jeep. Now maybe it knows people jog that trail at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And let's face it, we're easy prey to a predator, an alpha predator.
Mm-hmm.
We're easy, especially if they take us down from behind.
Yeah.
And that's what I think its thing was doing. I think it seen the Jeep there, and it thought maybe there was someone jogging on that trail, and they were going to catch him on the way down. Not expecting us to come from the other side of the street with headlamps and actually see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that was crazy, man.
Yeah, that's a possibility. It may have went into stealth mode and went to crawling towards y'all. Yeah, that kind of sounds about right. If it was hunting, if it was hunting.
I don't know if it shut its lights off in its eyes or if it closed its eyes, but I know one thing: whatever it was, it didn't leap and bound and run away from us. It dropped down, and I felt it was belly crawling towards us and trying to creep up on us like a predator.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually the first intuition's correct.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We always go with our gut too. Yeah,
absolutely. So, dude from Texas posted again. Dude, that's my man. Why do you believe that dogmen taunt and tap on windows when they could just easily kill?
Because I don't think they want to kill. I think they get a rush from the fear that when our adrenaline's going with the fear. I forgot what it's called, a pheromone or something.
Yeah.
That's some kind of name to it. I think they get off on that whatever that does for them. I think they get off on it. And I think that's why they try to put the fear in God into people. Like I said, I don't think they're as deadly as people think they are, because if that was the case, I would be dead. I had one come to my house.
Oh, wow.
I had one outside my bedroom window. I had one underneath my front deck. I was 6 feet away from it. All I had in my hand was a can of pepper spray and an 8-inch pocket knife.
Wow.
And if he wanted to kill me, I would be dead. If you want me to tell that story, I'll tell that story.
Yeah. If you want to tell it, by all means. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I was being pulled back to a location in the woods, one of our hot spots. I don't know why I was being pulled there, but I was just being pulled there. And as I was getting closer to it, I must have got hit with some infrasound or something. So it felt like something was trying to stop me from finding what I was supposed to find. But I was being pulled for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I told Brian and I told our cameraman, Bill, I said, listen, I'm going. Whether you guys come or not, I'm going without you because I can't take it anymore. I'm being pulled there for weeks. And, they both said, no, you're not going to go alone. We'll go together. But as I got closer to the location, I started getting sick and overheating and all this kind of stuff. And I had to pour some water over my head and eat some oranges and take a break. But it wasn't going to stop me from getting to where I was going to go. So when we finally got to these woods, we went up on a high ridge where we had an experience where we were bluff charged by a dog man. We believe it was a dog man. I got a picture of it. It looks like a dog man's snout to me, looking over the wall. We're looking into the swamp, not really seeing anything. We're looking all around, not seeing any sign, no structures, no nothing. And it felt like there was a veil over my eyes. And I was like, man, why was I being pulled here if I can't even see anything,
Right.
What's going on? And then something said, jump up on this big rock. I jumped up on this big rock, and I moved the cattails in front of me with a walking stick I had. And when I moved the cattails, I seen a trackway that went deep into right to the middle of the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
So then my cameraman jumped up. I said, uh, so zoom in to this swamp where this trail goes. Let's see what's in there. So then Brian jumped up, and we're all on this giant rock looking in. I'm holding the cattails open with my walking stick, and my cameraman, Bill, zooms into this swamp. And there in the middle of the swamp is what looks like a den. There's a den in the middle of the swamp. And there's this giant canine head, for lack of a better description. It looked like a wolf's head, and it's looking to my south. Behind that one is what looks like a hyena snarling at us.
Wow.
Now, that's the one we believe bluff charged us that night, because the picture I have is of something with a short snout and pointy ears.
Mm-hmm.
So we believe that's the one that bluff charges. This thing is looking right at us, snarling at us, and to its right is this creature that looks like an alien. I can't explain what it is, but it looks like this weird-looking alien. And to that alien's right are two small, looks like two baby Sasquatches.
Wow.
So we're freaking out. Now, all of a sudden, the veil is lifted off our eyes, and we're seeing X's and arches, and we're finding scat on the ground. We even found a thing that looked like a corral. I don't know if they were using this thing to corral the animals in the woods and hunting them there, or using it as an ambush point, or just some place to rest, lean up against. But I got photographs of this thing. Looks like a corral. So we find all this stuff. So we're like, oh my God, I can't believe we found all this stuff. You know, this is what I was meant to find. Okay. I go home that night. Being from the city, I live upstate in the country now. Being from the city, we don't leave our windows open, especially if you're on the first floor, you know. Mm-hmm. Always keep them closed with the air conditioner on. That night, or a couple of nights later, I'm sleeping in my bedroom, which is right by on the ground floor. Mm-hmm. And I got the window open because it's a hot night. I got my cat in between me and my wife, and we're sleeping. And in the middle of the night, I wake up. Just get a vibe that there's something out in the yard. And I'm thinking, I'm going to put my hand on the wall. I feel like there's something on the outside of this window. And I'm leaning towards the window, and I feel like I thought I heard something sniff, like to get my scent from the outside.
Yeah.
At that point, my cat jumps up out of the bed and runs upstairs. And I get up, and I grab my dirty, and I start walking towards the backyard. I'm going to put the sensor lights on, see what's in the yard. And as I'm walking towards the sliding glass door in the kitchen, I hear a voice in my head say, don't go out there. Don't put the lights on, because you don't want to see what's looking in. Do yourself a favor, go back to bed, make believe it never happened. Now, this is not who I am. If I think someone's on my property, I don't go back to bed. I go out and investigate, you know.
Right.
But this is my gut talking to me, telling me, don't do it. So I turn around, I go back to bed, I close the window, I go to sleep. I wake up in the morning, I go to work. Come home from work, I go in the backyard to look. And I had just had a line put in from my well to my house. So there was no grass, there was just dirt, right?
Yeah.
And on my dirt, underneath my window, are 3 or 4 claw marks. Like, yeah, I was here last night, you know?
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, something followed me home. So I tell Brian this, you know, I tell Bill this, and they go, oh, you know, so you better make sure the gun is always loaded, yada, yada, yada. So then a couple of weeks go by, and when I go out to start my car in the morning, like at 4:30 in the morning, I usually have my pocket knife and my pepper spray on me, because every now and then we'll get packs of wild dogs or coyotes running through the neighborhood, and I don't want to be mauled. I want to be able to defend myself.
Yes.
So I go out in the yard, and I start the car up, and I'm the third car from the front deck, because my daughter's car and my wife's car and my car, and I open up the door at 4:30 in the morning to feed my outside cat, Callie. She's like you know, 3 pounds soaking wet, right? As I'm walking back to the front steps to go upstairs, the sensor lights go on. They're blinding me. I can't see, but I'm feeling like there's something underneath the front deck, but I can't see it because it's in the pitch black because the lights are blinding me.
Right.
At this point, Callie is coming around the front deck to use my wife's garden as a bathroom because I just finished feeding her.
Mm-hmm.
She sees whatever she sees. She jumps up in the air. She runs up into the woods she's like a freight train running through the woods. This 3-pound cat, right?
Yeah.
So now I want to know what just scared the shit out of the cat. So I'm walking towards it. I got the knife out one hand, the pepper spray in the other. I'm trying to block the floodlights from blinding me to see and I get to the front of my daughter's car. And my daughter's car is just right where the deck begins. Mm-hmm. So there's a good, 5 maybe feet that goes back the deck, however wide the deck is, 6 feet wide, whatever it is, 8 feet wide.
Yeah.
That leads to the garage. And I'm trying to focus in, and all of a sudden, my eyes come in focus, and I see the biggest canine head you could ever imagine.
Oh.
Sitting under my deck looking at me. Wow. And now I'm leaning in to get a better look, and I can see it's got like a mane coming down. It's over its shoulders and down its chest.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking, what the fuck is under my deck? And I start walking towards it because I want to know what's at my house. And I get about to the front door of my daughter's car. She had a Ford door. Mm-hmm. So I get to the front door of her car, and a little voice in my head says, stop. Don't go any further. Stop. What you need to do right now is back out of here and go in the house. So that's what I do. I back out and go in the house. Now I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Am I going to get the .30-06 out from under the out, or the shotgun? Am I going to go down there blasting away? Am I going to go to war with these things? If I go to war with these things, I've heard enough stories where it doesn't end well. For the people who go to war with them. I got my son upstairs. My son-in-law's living in the house. Everybody's got, guns. You know what I mean? So I'm not worried about. So I'm thinking, should I tell them? I don't want to wake them up 5 o'clock in the morning. They'll kill me. No one's got to get up until 7:30. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
I got all these thoughts going through my head. So I said, you know what? I'm going to lock the back door. I put the wood down, I sealed the back door up. I grabbed my tactical flashlight. On my way out to my car, I hit underneath the deck from my walkway. See who's under there. Hit it with the tactical flashlight, which is like a 500 lumen flashlight. Mm-hmm. There's nothing under there. But my brand new retaining wall is soaking wet. So I go over to look at my retaining wall. It smells like ammonia. And I'm looking at it. And this thing marked my house as its territory. It pissed on my brand new retaining wall. And I'm looking at this, and it looked like an oil slick going down the driveway drain. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm like, son of a bitch pissed on my brand new wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That pisses me off, right?
Right.
So I get in the car, I go to work. I get to work an hour and a half later, my wife calls me up freaking out. What's the matter? She says, I went to open the sliding glass door in the patio to feed Callie this morning, and the whole door fell off the frame and almost killed me. Good thing my son Nicholas was in the kitchen. He caught it. Otherwise, it would have crushed my wife. And I was like, well, what are you feeding the cat for? I fed the cat at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the sliding glass door worked great. She goes, well, it didn't work good now because it almost killed me. Now, the next day happened to be my day off. So I said, okay, just lock everything up, and tomorrow I'll take everything out, and I'll retrack it and everything, I'll fix it, And that creature, when I was looking for it underneath the front deck, must have been around the back trying to pop the sliding glass door off the track to get in.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if he did that just to show me, see how easy it is to get in.
Yeah.
But because I have like 3 different locks on my sliding glass door, it didn't come off the track. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You actually had to unlock it for it to come off the track. But the next day I took it out and I relayed everything and relayed the track and it was fine. But that's what I think it did. I think it went around the back while I was in the front and just said, listen, you know, I know where you live. You know where I live now. I know where you live.
Right.
And it was crazy, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Jeez.
Yeah. So like yesterday or the other night when Jody was talking about they could track you, you're sent home.
Yeah.
That's what it did to me. Followed me home. You know.
Wow. Dude, that's astonishing. And that was a good distance, wasn't it?
Oh, from my house to where my hot spot is?
Yeah.
It's got to be, I would say, at least 20 miles. But, you know, I live up in the country. You can do that 20 miles and never have to cross a main road. And all the side roads up here where I live, there are no streetlights on any of them. You know,
oh,
so long as you're not going across the main drag,
they won't see you.
You're just doing side streets. No one will even see you.
Yeah. Wow. Ooh, man, I'm really glad y'all weren't hurt or it didn't come in the house, man, because that would have been probably an all-out war, honestly.
Yeah, that would have definitely been an all-out war, absolutely. If they would have came in and they would have hurt anybody in my family, I would have went back to those woods with all my cousins and all our guns, and we would have burnt those woods down and killed everything that ran out of it. Absolutely.
Yep, you sure right.
There would have been no doubt in my mind. We would have. The Italians, we have a thing called vendetta.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
You hurt one of ours, we're gonna hurt one of yours.
Yep, it's just like us Hispanics, man. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it would have went down. I'm glad that it didn't go down that way. Like I'm glad I didn't get the shotgun out and go blasting. You know, like I said, I heard that little voice in my head said, just let everybody sleep. Everybody's armed. Just let everybody sleep and go to work. And what do they call that? Ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
And it was. They didn't know anything about it. I didn't tell them what happened. You know, I never told my family what happened because first of all, they would think I'm out of my mind if I told them that. And second of all, if my wife believed me, she'd probably kill me. You know,
right?
For having that thing follow me home. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tom K has a question.
Uh-oh.
And he goes, do you think Bigfoot and Dogman can live peacefully in an area? And you and I talked about this the other day, and you had an interesting theory on that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they're both alpha apex predators, and I think they both have giant ranges. Because a wolf has 100-mile range. Okay, a regular timber wolf has 100-mile range. So the way I do it is I like to say, think about 2 giant circles, okay? And at some point those circles cross each other. And I think the circle on the left is the Sasquatch territory and the circle on the right is the Dogman territory. And in that little area in between where they cross is both of their territory. But I don't think that either one of them will be in that location when the other one is. I think when the Dogman is in that area, then the Bigfoot is at its furthest point away, and vice versa. Because I think if they both end up in that location at the same time, there'll be hell to pay.
Right. Dude from Texas popped up with another question, and he wanted to know, why do you think dogmen frequent cemeteries?
I think the ones that we see at the cemeteries are the demonic ones. That's what I think. Yeah. I think they're looking for souls, lost souls. That's what I think. I think there are a lot of lost souls at cemeteries that just hang around. That's why if you go to a cemetery and you do EVPs or you bring, equipment out with you can get EVP, voice phenomenon. You bring an SLS camera, you'll get images walking in there. Even if you use like a full spectrum or an IR camera, you take photographs, you'll get apparitions,
Right.
And I think all of these apparitions are lost souls, maybe people who committed suicide or people who died of drug overdose. And I think that, and again, this is just my opinion. It's one man's opinion, okay?
Yeah.
So don't kill me on it. I think the ones that you see at the cemetery are actually demons and not actual flesh and blood dogmen.
Wow, that's interesting. Oh, your buddy popped up, Sir Brian. He goes, tell Al we are getting tats on Thursday before the investigation.
Yeah, okay. Tell him I'll have to shave my ass for that one.
Wow. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Wow.
He's out of his mind.
Yeah.
But, that's what I think. I think there are a lot of lost souls. I mean, I think I believe that these creatures can see in different spectrums of light that we can't see in. I think both the dogmen and the Sasquatch can see IR light. I mean, it's invisible to us, but it's not invisible to them.
Right.
I don't believe it's invisible to dogs or cats either. So they see that. I also think that they may be able, the ones that are interdimensional,
Yeah.
I think they can raise their vibration or frequency to change the spectrum of light that they're in. So, like, when you hear these stories of people saying, oh, I had it in the crosshairs of my scope, and I was just about to pull the trigger and it disappeared.
Yeah.
Well, technically, I don't think it actually disappeared. I think unless it jumped into a different dimension, I think it may have just changed the spectrum of light it's in, and now you don't see it anymore, so you think it disappeared. I mean, I'm not saying that they can't jump into different dimensions. I think they can, but I also think that they can raise their vibration and change their frequency to change the spectrum of light they're in that we can't see them. And that's why I think the more we're able to, technology advances of different spectrums of light, different kind of equipment, I think the more stuff we're going to see around us all the time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Now I'm a firm believer that, especially Bigfoot can see the IR light. I mean, if a deer and a hog, and I know this because I see it all the time on my trail cam, they can be in front of that trail cam with the IR light, and when it snaps, you get that picture of that deer just looking right at your trail camera, and it's like, how in the hell did he hear it? Did he see it? And it just makes sense, they can see that IR light. And I know.
Yeah, and that's another thing that was saying. Jody was saying that they smelled the petroleum that's the cameras are made from, like the rubber or whatever.
Yes.
I'm a big believer that they can actually smell the alkaline in the batteries.
Yes.
They used to run those. They used to run those cameras as well. So I think they can not only smell what the camera is made of, but the actual acid in the battery itself.
Yeah. I've been hearing that a lot here lately, and I think there's something to that. I really do. Really, really do. All right.
I mean, you got to remember their senses are so much better than ours.
Oh,
they're
are.
Hearing, they're seeing, they're smelling. I mean, just so much better, So.
All right, y'all. Y'all have any more questions? If there ain't any more questions, we're gonna let Al get to the rest of his night because I know it's getting late for him. Let's see what we have pop up, man. Honestly, Al, I really appreciate you coming on. Man, this has been a blast, dude. Just listening to your encounters, it's something I've never heard of. Honestly, it's just great.
If you want, I think I got one more that we could talk about if you'd like. If you want to go for another 10 minutes or so, but.
Yeah, if you're up for it, we can go another 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah. So I think this was like my very first time I seen the dog man. Or I was traveling on the Parkway going to work again at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I seen these two. I seen four giant amber balls of light coming out of the woods, right? And I'm thinking, what the hell is coming out of it? And I know they're at the 7 foot level because I know that the guys who cut the grass along the parkway chop the tree branches up. That's where the tractor goes underneath, you know?
Yeah.
They cut underneath those trees. So I know they're about 7 foot. So I start to slow down because, again, it's a Saturday. I'm the only idiot on the parkway. I slow down. I roll the window down on the truck. And I'm sitting in my Jeep, and I'm looking at these eyes, and they're bipedal. And there's four eyes walking towards me. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, it's two Sasquatches coming out of the woods, you know? And I'm thinking, oh, maybe, you know, I never seen them with yellow eyes before. Every time I've ever seen them, it's been with red eyes. But who knows? Maybe it's a female, you know. Bucks and does have different color eye shine, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at them. And I'm just locked in. And then they see me. And they both lock eyes me. And they drop down to all four. And their heads are down. Like, I don't know if I had a German Shepherd. When he ran with his head down like he's sniffing, you know? And these things are locked onto me, and they're looking at me, and they're running towards me. Now, they're not running at full speed. They're just kind of trotting, but they're coming towards me. And I'm looking at them, and I swear to God, I felt like I was locked in a trance. I felt like I was in a trance, and I was just locked on, and I just couldn't move. And they're getting closer, and they're getting closer, and then that little voice in my head goes, what are you doing? You got to get out of here. You got to get out of here now, you know? And I wake up, I punch the Jeep out, I close the window, and I start to pull away. And just as these two things get towards the end of the meadow where they were running across, I'm already maybe, you know, 30, 40 yards away because I punched the Jeep out, and I'm looking in the rear view mirror, and I got my foot on the brake to light the road up so I can get a better look at them.
Mm-hmm.
When both of them heads spin around and go down to the ground like they caught the scent of something, and they took off running north up the parkway, okay? So I said, oh, they must have caught the scent of a deer or something. So now I called Brian up, and I said, listen, dude, I got to tell you what happened. I don't know what the hell happened today. I don't know if I'm imagining this, if I'm losing my mind or what. And I tell him, and he says, no. He says, you got to go back and you got to investigate. You got to see where they came from, and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, no, I know where they come from. There's like a junior high school behind there, and then behind the across from the junior high school, there's a condominium complex. There's really nothing back there. And he's like, no, you got to go, and you got to go back, and you got to investigate. You got to go back to the trees. You got to measure the trees, see how high they were. So that Sunday, I do that. I go there, and I measure the tree, and the tree is like 7, 8 feet high when it came out from underneath. And I'm walking behind the woods, and I find that there's like a creek back there that the state stock with trout. And I talk to all these people who are fishing, and I'm following the creek. Now I go underneath the roadway. I never have to go above the road. I go under the roadway. I come out on the other side of the roadway where the condominium is. Next to the condominium is a giant lake. There's fish, there's frogs, there's turtle in there. I said, okay. I walk some more, and as I'm walking, I get past the condos, and it opens up to a giant cornfield. What's in the cornfield? Corn, deer, you know, and I'm thinking, wow, there are more things here to feed on that I could have ever imagined. You know, being in my town, I thought I knew it like the back of my hand, but I was so wrong that, you know, every time I went a little bit further, I found a different kind of food source, you know.
Yeah.
And then you have this creek with the fresh water flowing. So then I go to work on Monday, and there's a Department of Environmental Conservation truck parked on the grass in the meadow. And I go, that's curious. Never seen that there. But maybe they're stocking the creek with trout or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's there. I come home. It's there. I go to work the next day. It's there. I come home. It's there. The next day I go to work. It's still there. 3 days in a row. It hasn't moved. I'm thinking, who's in this truck and where are they? The truck hasn't moved from the same location.
Yeah.
And finally, end of the week comes. I said, okay, this thing is there on Saturday after work. I'm going back. I go there Saturday morning. I go to work. Now it's not a Department of Environmental Conservation, but a department of a different kind of agency that has to do with like the wilderness and stuff. I forgot what it was. Something DC or DEA or something like environmental protection. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a different agency, but it was a New York agency. They were both New York agencies, and they both kind of worked with the wilderness, the environment, but it was a different truck. Now it's a white pickup truck. I come home from work Saturday, and that truck is still there. Different truck, but it's in the same spot as the other truck.
Right.
So Sunday, I said, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go see if that truck is there. So Sunday, I go after church. I drop everybody off, and I go to the meadow where the truck is, and the truck is gone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what they were doing there, but they were there for a whole week, and I never seen anybody.
Wow.
Ever. In the truck, out of the truck, in the field. I don't know where they were. They were like invisible. But,
wow.
Yeah, so maybe they were tracking these things, or maybe they got a report of these things, or I don't know, maybe they have trail cams set up, and something caught a picture of it and sent it back to their cell phones, and they went out looking for. I don't know. But all I know is I've been up here. There 25 years I've been living in this town. And that's the only time this truck has ever been in that meadow. I've never seen another one there.
Wow, dude, that's crazy.
And I'm telling you, these things, when they locked eyes with me, they put me in some kind of a trance. They really did, because I just felt like I was being hypnotized. It was crazy.
Wow, that sounds like it, Al. Wow.
Yeah.
That was definitely something weird. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah,
Definitely.
You know what? I run everything by Brian, because sometimes I just, I've had a lot of personal experiences with all kinds of paranormal stuff, whether it's UFOs, cryptids, and ghosts and stuff like that. And I'm always questioning everything I experience, and I always run it past him, because like I said, he thinks out of the box and he thinks totally different than me. So it's great when we start like bouncing stuff off each other,
Yeah.
And looking at it and from a different perspective, get a different perspective on it. And he's like, no, you didn't imagine it, if you believe it happened, I believe it happened too. And you got to go investigate it, He's always telling me you got to go investigate. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Boots on the ground.
I love, and that's what I live for, is boots on the ground, But
absolutely.
I didn't really want to go and investigate that, because I thought I knew everything that was there, and I was so wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, how could I live in this? I mean, my kids went to that junior high school. My son played soccer on that field. The town hall is right next to the junior high school. I can't tell you how many times I was in the town hall for, permits and stuff like that. And to think that all that other stuff was right there, that, like a large predator could easily survive on and never be seen if it went under the road, where the creek is.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild. All right, Al. We're gonna go ahead and start winding it down.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. It has been such an honor and a blessing talking with you tonight. I'm sure everybody thinks the same. I'll definitely be sending you some of my stuff that I get and letting you look over it and getting your honest opinion on everything. Like I said, I need a second set of eyes on that really really has the experience and dude, I was so glad when you said yeah I'll take a look at it, no problem. I'll be blunt with you and like that. That's what I need. That's what I need. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I,
I mean, I don't pull any punches, and I tell you what, Brian always says, stop looking at other people's stuff because you just fight with everybody. But I'm not really looking to fight with anybody. I'm looking at it as an ex-photographer, and
yeah,
I'm looking at it common sense, black and white. That's the way I
right.
look at stuff. You know what I mean? And if I see something, like Beef sent me some stuff, you know what I mean?
Uh huh.
And I cleaned it up, put it through some filters and stuff, and yeah, there was shit there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was jumped right out at you. There was no, maybe it is or maybe it's not a blob scratch. No, there was something there. It was very easy to tell there was something there. And then there are other photos where people are seeing this, that, and the other thing, and I don't see it. And I just, I just say, listen, I'm not seeing it. If you want to believe what you're seeing is there, that's fine. It's your belief. But you asked me, I'm not seeing it. I'm being honest with you.
Right. That yep, and I'll definitely appreciate that, Al. I really do. I really
No
do.
problem, Rick. Anytime. No problem whatsoever.
All right, y'all. Everybody in the chat, stick around for a few more minutes. In the description below, there's a link to Al's Facebook page. Go and like, subscribe, share it, comment, show Al the love, because man, he is just amazing. And there's also links below to my YouTube channel and Facebook page. Same with those. Like, share, subscribe, comment. And Al, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good night, buddy.
Thank you, Rick. Anytime whatsoever. Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Same here. Good night, Al.
Good night.
All right, y'all. Before we go, I have a little update on my property. Yesterday morning, my son and I, who is the editor for my channel, we went out and did a morning investigation on my property, and needless to say, it friggin' delivered. We entered the woods at 6 o'clock. It's all on video. And if you want to see more, because it's going to come up as an episode, subscribe, like, and comment, because it is bad ass. And with that, y'all, this is Lieutenant signing off.